Aiden Archer wiped sweat off his forehead as he led his newest client along the crystal-clear mountain trail. The alien sun had been beating down on his bare torso for years, but years of working as a survival instructor on Nova Terra had made his skin tougher. His well-kept beard caught sweat drops as they rolled down his face, and he adjusted the light brown backpack slung over one shoulder. "How much further until we reach the lake, Instructor Archer?" The blue-skinned woman's voice had a hint of tiredness in it, and her long black hair swayed gently in the mountain breeze. Her cinnamon-colored suede outfit, which wasn't the best choice for hiking, left little to the imagination. While looking at his beautiful client, Aiden tried to keep a professional attitude by saying, "The view is worth the climb, I promise." Valera smiled, showing off her pearly white teeth that looked stunning against her azure skin. "I certainly hope so," the travel brochure promised, Aiden replied. Her flirtatious comment turned into a piercing scream as she suddenly dropped to her thighs. "What's wrong?" Aiden was at her side, his survival training kicking in as he scanned for immediate threats. It's itching and something is biting me," Valera screamed as she rubbed her legs against her short suede skirt by the stars. "It burns," Aiden said in a professional voice. "Let me take a look. These mountains have some nasty native parasites." He knelt down next to her, with her medical kit already in hand. "I need to check the affected area. Do you agree?" Valera nodded frantically, tears starting to form in her silvery eyes. "Yes, just stop it." Aiden helped her take off her skirt and underwear, immediately spotting the problem to see tiny iridescent creatures, no bigger than earth fleas, were swarming across her blue skin. He muttered, "You must have been sitting on an infected animal's sleeping spot." These were bushbugs. Nasty little jerks. But he could handle them. He reached into his pack and said, "We need to make camp right here. These parasites need immediate treatment. Camp. But my clothes need to be burned." Aiden cut him off firmly. "Bugs lay eggs in fabric. Standard procedure is to burn any affected clothing. I have spare gear in my pack." As Valor quickly set up camp and started a fire, Aiden couldn't help but notice how Valor's professional face had cracked. The normally calm alien woman was clearly panicking, but she was trying to keep her dignity despite her embarrassing situation. "Will this leave scars?" she asked as she watched him prepare the medicinal gel. "Not if we treat it quickly," Aiden assured her. "This is a local remedy, similar to aloe vera from Earth. It'll kill the parasites and soothe the burning." He paused, hovering his hands over her skin, and asked, "Are you okay with that?" Valar let out a shaky laugh. "Let these things eat me alive," Arton thought. "I think we're past the point of modesty." As Aiden began to apply the gel, he noticed Vora's. The medicine was starting to work, and the parasites were already starting to fall off her skin. After a while, she said in a playful voice, "This isn't exactly how I imagined getting you to put your hands on me." Aiden almost dropped the gel container. "That's not very professional, Miss Tell, nor is being half naked in front of you," she replied. "But here we are." She turned to face him, her brown eyes meeting his silver ones. "And I think we can drop the formalities," Aiden replied automatically, and then mentally kicked himself for encouraging her. By the time he finished the treatment, the sun was setting, and Valara was now wearing her spare hiking pants. Summer, you sat next to the fire while they waited for her clothes to finish burning. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not everyone would have handled this situation so professionally." Aiden nodded, trying to ignore how the firelight played on her blue skin. "All part of the job," he said, "but I have to admit this is a first. No other alien women have been attacked by parasites on your watch," he said. "None quite so memorable." Valar's smile made his heart skip a beat. The mountain air grew crisp as darkness settled over their makeshift camp. Aiden added another log to the fire and watched sparks dance up into the starry sky. Valar sat there. "And always sold me." The firelight made her blue skin look beautiful, but she still shivered sometimes. "The temperature drops quickly up here," Aiden explained, settling down next to her. "The atmosphere on Nova Terra is thinner than what you're probably used to. My home world is much warmer." She admitted, unconsciously moving closer to him. "I'm starting to appreciate certain heat sources," and Aiden felt his pulse quicken, but kept up a professional attitude. "We should probably get some rest. The tents are set up and I have an extra sleeping bag, just one extra," Vala said, in a playful tone. The following morning, Vala met with his fellow prisoners in the combat zone. She interrupted, "Don't be silly. You've already seen me in far more compromising positions today. Besides," she said with a small smirk, "my people have different views on physical proximity than humans. We find your species' reluctance about body contact quite amusing." Aiden raised an eyebrow in interest, even though he had professional reservations. Firelight danced across his muscled torso as he shifted positions. Valara hummed as she adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. "On my world, physical intimacy isn't wrapped in all these complicated social taboos. It's as natural as sharing a meal or having a conversation," she added. Paused, silver eyes twinkling. "Though I have to say, humans have a certain appeal that makes the experience much more interesting." Aiden cleared his throat, feeling warmth that didn't have anything to do with the fire, and asked, "What appeal would that be, or intensity?" She answered without hesitation, "Everything you do with such passion, whether it's building a fire, treating parasites, or other activities." The night air seemed to crackle with tension as Aiden studied her features, noticing the subtle patterns in her blue skin, the way her black hair caught the light, and the way her lips curled when she smiled. "You're staring," she said, making him laugh. There was a weak counter-argument in her voice that she was observing professionally the effects of the anti-parasite gel on xenomorphic epidermis. Valara laughed, making a sound like crystal wind chimes in the mountain air. "Is that what you're calling it? It looks like you're wondering what it would be like to kiss me." Aiden took a sharp breath, caught off guard by her directness. "That's quite an assumption." "Not an assumption," Valar murmured as she moved closer. "Your pupils dilate when you look at me. Your breathing pattern changes, and that lovely thing humans do, blushing whenever I get too close." She reached out and ran her finger along his beard. "When you put your hands over my back," she said, "at the touch of it I feel a new passion sweep through me. Then the pact cans in so tight it feels like gasping for air." His voice came out huskier than he meant it to. "Ah, there's nothing professional about my interest in Aiden." The way she said his name sent shivers down his spine. "I've been studying human males since I arrived on Nova, but none have been quite as captivating as you." The fire crackled, casting shadows across their faces, and Aiden found himself leaning closer, drawn by some primal attraction. "This could make things more complicated," she whispered, "but some complications are worth exploring." Their first kiss was tentative and exploratory. Her lips were softer than he expected, and they had a hint of coolness that went well with his warmth. When they parted ways, they were both breathing. Valar gasped and pressed her hand against his chest. "It's amazing how humans can be so hot. And you're so wonderfully cool," he replied, running his fingers through her silky black hair. "Looks like mountain spring water," she laughed again, sending pleasant vibrations through his chest. "Such poetic comparisons," she said. "Another fascinating human trait. You can't help but romanticize everything," she said. "The woman who's been studying me all day, studying, admiring, desiring. My people believe in acting on attraction when it's mutual." Aiden caught her. "What about professional boundaries? I think those dissolve somewhere between the parasite incident and you saving my life," she said, as she moved closer and pressed against his side. "Besides, I've noticed how humans love breaking their own rules." The night air got colder around them, but they didn't notice because they were lost in their own world of disrecovery. They learned about each other through touches, kisses, and whispered conversations. Valera told stories of her home world, where relationships flowed as naturally as water, unhindered by strict rules. Aiden talked about Earth's distant traditions, which he saw as both old and lasting. As the fire died down to embers, they went back to the tent. Their relationship grew stronger naturally and organically, and they learned new things about each other's cultures and societies that they hadn't learned in school or through cultural exchanges. Later, while they were still hugging and cuddling, Valera traced patterns on Aiden's chest. "In my world," she said, "this would be the start of a formal courtship." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "Formal courtship?" he asked. After all, physical compatibility is seen as the first step," she said. "Then comes emotional bonding, followed by genetic compatibility testing." "Genetic compatibility testing," he said. Aiden propped himself up on an elbow. Vala's silver eyes lit up. "Yes, my species can interbreed with humans. Did I not mention that?" Aiden's jaw dropped. "That's something that should probably be in tourist information packets. Where would the fun be in that?" She snuggled closer, her cool skin soothing against his warmth. "Besides, it doesn't happen easily. The conditions have to be just right." The meanings of her words hung in the air between them, adding another layer of intensity to their already charged connection. Outside, mountain winds whispered through the trees, and somewhere in the distance, a nighttime animal called out to the stars. "I know you just at all rest." Valera smiled mysteriously. "Aye," she kissed him softly. "But that's a conversation for another time. Right now, I'd rather do more research." Aiden laughed and pulled her closer. "More research?" he asked. "I thought you were quite thorough earlier." "Oh, my dear human," she purred. "I'm nothing if not meticulous in my studies." Dawn broke over the mountains of Novaterra, painting the sky with shades of amber and rose. Aiden woke up first, his survival instincts telling him something was wrong. It was too quiet. No calls from the native wildlife, no rustling in the underbrush. Valera moved next to him, her blue skin shining. It dared to be a determined pattern of action in the world. "Something is wrong," she whispered, sensing his tension. Aiden reached for his pants, his muscles rippling as he moved. "Stay here while I check the perimeter," he said. "Not a chance," Valera replied, already putting on her borrowed clothes. "My people are natural trackers. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. Aiden couldn't help but admire her determination and everything else about her. The closeness of the night before had made him even more aware of her presence. "Just stay close, worried about me," she said, pressing against his back and running her cool fingers along the contours of his shoulders. "How wonderfully human of you," he said. "You professional concern," but the way his body responded to her touch made him think otherwise. Of course, she purred something very professional, like last night's survival lessons. Before Aiden could answer, a distinctive screech echoed through the trees, making him look more interested. "Ravagers? What are those?" Valar asked, her playful demeanor changing to alert curiosity. "Predators think earth wolves crossed with mountain lions, but with tentacles and a nasty habit of hunting in packs." He grabbed his survival pack. "They shouldn't be in this territory unless something drove them here," Valara said, scanning the tree line on my world. "Apex predators only leave their hunting grounds when forced to leave." A branch broke nearby, followed by a low growl. Aiden pulled Valara behind him, his muscular body tensing for action. They quickly broke camp, leaving only the cold ashes of their fire as a trail. Aiden led them along a narrow ridge, his experienced eye picking out the safest path through the treacherous terrain. As they climbed, Valar noticed how calm they were, pointing out that most people I've met would be panicking, and that most people you've met probably haven't spent 5 years learning about Nova Terra's deadliest predators. He helped her over a particularly steep part, his strong hand staying on her waist. I must say, this is a first. Valara laughed softly as she ran away from danger. You really are something special, Iden Archer told her. The alien who seduced her survival instructors seduced her okay. Offense? I just expressed a natural attraction. It's not my fault humans are so responsive, she said. Their conversation was cut off by another screech closer. This time Iden pulled them into a shallow cave and pressed Valara against the rock wall. Their bodies fit together perfectly, and even though they were in danger, they could feel the electric current of attraction rushed between them, and they thought they were safe for a moment. Aiden whispered, "We should be very quiet," as Valara ran her fingers down his chest. He caught her hand and brought it to his lips. "You're encouraging. You love it." She leaned forward and kissed him passionately, making them both forget about the danger for a moment. When they parted ways, Aiden rested his forehead against hers and said, "We need to focus on survival." Valara smiled mischievously and said, "My species believes that life-threatening situations heighten all sensations. That's why we... Costiomenes, a Bridgewiles triangulator, carries the Imperial Manta's plates and both swords carved in the heroes red and yellow. Often choose dangerous places for courtship rituals. You're telling me this is making you excited? Everything about you makes me excited, Aiden, and the danger only makes it more intense." A roar from outside reminded them of their situation, and Aiden peered out of the cave, his experienced eye assessing the situation. "There's a ranger station about 2 km from here if we can reach it," he said, but his words were cut off by a huge shape falling from the sky and landing at the cave's entrance. The Ravager was even scarier up close, a mass of rippling muscle covered in iridescent scales, with 4 tentacle-like protruding from its shoulders and razor-sharp claws that could cut through steel. As Aiden pushed Valara deeper into the cave and faced the creature, his muscles tensed up as he prepared for battle, knowing that they didn't have a good chance against such a strong predator. But before either of them could move, something strange happened. The Ravager arched its back and made a sound that Aiden had never heard on Nova Terra, a high-pitched whine of distress. It pawed at its nose tentacles and thrashed around wildly. "It was the Bushbug treatment," Valara exclaimed. "That's it!" Aiden quickly pulled the container from his pack and warned the creature before throwing its contents at it. The Ravager retreated as if it had been hit, letting out another distressed cry. Valara said, pressing against his back, "I'm not sure if I should be impressed by your quick thinking or amused that the same treatment saved us both from my intimate problem." Aiden turned to face her, and the adrenaline and attraction in her made his blood sing. She agreed, pulling him down for another kiss. This one was different, full of the energy of survival and victory mixed with the spice of danger and desire. When they finally broke apart, they were both heavily breathing. Vala's silver eyes were dancing with mischief. "And something deeper," she said, tracing his jaw with one finger on hers. "Overcoming danger together is considered a powerful thing. Except when you aren't dangerous." Aiden raised an eyebrow and put his hand on her hips. "What exactly does your culture prescribe in these situations?" she asked. "Oh, all sorts of interesting things," she purred. "Would you like a demonstration?" Another roar, this time farther away, reminded them of their situation. Aiden reluctantly stepped back. "Rain check. We should really get to that ranger station, promise." Valar's voice was husky with promise. He took her hand and led her out of the cave. But I have to ask, does everything in your culture revolve around seduction? She laughed. Not everything, she replied. But humans make it so fun. How can we resist? The ranger station appeared out of the mist like a haven of civilization in the middle of nowhere. It was a strong building made from local timber and modern materials that were designed to withstand Novatira's harsh environment. Aiden typed in his access code and locked the door behind them, letting Valara into their home sweet home. If only for a short time. The adrenaline from their escape was still rushing through his veins, making his skin hypersensitive to every breath of air. Valara moved through the space with natural grace, her silver eyes taking in every detail. She ran her fingers along a wooden countertop and looked around. Aiden watched her explore, noticing how this leftover gel, someone on her skin, seemed to shimmer in the station's lights, and the way she moved was different, more fluid, almost hypnotic. His own body felt charged with awareness. Every nerve ending was alive with the Gel 1. Valara suddenly said, "It's reacting to our elevated heart rates," as he looked at her arm with fascination. Aiden walked up and noticed the subtle patterns appearing on her blue skin where he'd applied the medicine. That's new. I've never seen it do that before. Maybe it's the combination, she thought, as she reached out to touch his. After finishing, Aiden was mesmerized by the light show playing across their joined hands. The feeling was amazing, like static electricity mixed with warm honey. Valara stepped closer, resting her free hand on his chest. "Your heart rate is increasing," she said with a smile. "And your body temperature is fascinating," he teased her, remembering their earlier conversations for personal reasons. Her fingers traced patterns on his skin, leaving soft light trails in their wake. "You know, my people have legends about this kind of reaction," she said. "When two species that are compatible are in a moment of extreme stress or danger, their bodies can become synced." Her dark eyes met his and she purred. This is when the real fun started. Their lips met in a kiss that felt different from any other, charged with new energy that made every point of contact between them sing with sensation. The bioluminescence spread wherever they touched, creating a private light show that pulsed in time with their heartbeats. "It's amazing," Aiden thought as they finally parted ways. "Is this normal for your species?" Valara laughed softly, and the sound sent chills down his spine. "Nothing about this is normal, but then again, nothing about you has been normal since the moment I saw you," she said, guiding his hand to her neck, where her pulse raced beneath his fingers. "Feel like our hearts are beating in perfect sync," he said. Aiden could feel it. Their rhythms matched, creating a resonance that seemed to amplify every feeling. "The bushy bug gel must have some properties we don't fully understand," Valara said. He teased her by pressing closer and saying, "Can't you just enjoy the moment?" "I'm enjoying it plenty." She cut him off by giving him another kiss, this time one that was deeper and more demanding. The bioluminescence responded by intensifying, bathing them both in a soft, pulsing glow when they separated. They were both heavily breathing, and Vala's skin had taken on a deeper blue hue, almost iridescent in the strange light. "In my world," she said, her voice husky, "this would be seen as a sign of exceptional compatibility. Just exceptional, Aiden." He raised an eyebrow and traced the glowing patterns on her skin. "Unprecedented might be a better word for it," and she shivered when he touched her. "Should we be worried?" Valera's laugh was full of promise. The only thing you should be worried about is keeping up with me. My people believe that when the universe gives you a clear sign, you be foolish not to follow it. The bioluminescence pulsed brighter as she spoke, making patterns that seemed to flow between them like a visible sign of their connection. The ranger station's temperature control system hummed quietly to keep the air comfortable, but neither of them seemed to notice. They both noticed the artificial climate and how their world had shrunk down to just the places where they touched, the way their hearts beat in sync, and the growing awareness that something extraordinary was happening between them. You realize, Aiden said between kisses, this probably isn't covered in the standard survival training manual. Then we'll have to write a new chapter. Advanced interspecies relations, Valera replied, her fingers tracing glowing patterns across his chest. I'm thinking of calling it Advanced Interspecies Relations. They laughed together at first, but it quickly turned into something more intense as the bioluminescence reached new levels of brightness. The connection between them grew beyond the physical and became something neither had experienced before. Later, as they lay tangled together on the station's emergency bedding, the soft glow of their synchronized biology made abstract patterns on the ceiling. Valera ran her fingers along Aiden's jaw and said, "I should probably thank those bushbugs." Aiden raised an eyebrow and replied, "Thank them." She smiled mischievously. Who knows how long it would have taken us to find this compatibility without their intervention. He tried to look serious, but his eyes showed he was laughing. "Oh, I planned to seduce you," she said, pointing to their still glowing skin. The colony's evening lights cast a warm glow over Aiden's apartment as he and Valam returned from their exciting expedition. The bioluminescent effect from their earlier meeting had faded to a subtle shimmer, but their connection was still palpably strong. "Home sweet home," Aiden said, putting his gear by the door. "It's probably not as luxurious as you're used to," Valera said, looking around with curious eyes. "It's a wonder how great is good." "It's perfect," she said, running her hand along a shelf of survival manuals. "I'll take that as a compliment." He watched her move through his space, struck by how natural she looked. "Can I get you anything?" "I have more gears than I can use for everything." He shrugged. His weight loss was well on its way to regain its fattiness. She turned to face him with purposeful silver eyes and said, "We need to hold the first union celebration." Aiden raised an eyebrow and asked, "What is this? It's a ritual from my world?" She explained, approaching him with a fluid grace that made his heart beat faster. "When two beings experience an exceptional connection like ours, it must be properly honored." She continued, "This ritual involves, nothing too complicated, just some traditional preparations, a few sacred words." And then she smiled mysteriously, "Nature takes its course." The way she said this made his temperature rise a few degrees. "I'm starting to think you planned it," Aiden said. She laughed and said, "The bushbugs were an unexpected bonus, but let's just say I did my research on human-alien compatibility before choosing my survival instructor." Before Aiden could answer, Valera pulled a small vial from her remaining clothing. The liquid inside lit up with a familiar bioluminescence. "Is that similar to your bushbug gel from my world?" she asked. "It enhances physiological synchronization between compatible species, combined with the effects we're already experiencing." She left the implication open. Aiden took the vial and looked it over carefully. "A girl can hope," she said with a wink. "Let's begin." Valera led Aiden through the traditional preparations, which included applying the glowing liquid to certain parts of their bodies while reciting old words in her native language. The substance reacted with a remnant of bushbug gel, creating intricate patterns of light that danced across their skin. "Your language is beautiful," Aiden said as she finished another phrase. "What does it mean?" "This verse talks about the joining of stars," she translated, her hands making glowing trails across his chest. "How two faraway lights can merge to create something brighter than either could do alone. Believe that love, like light, can cross species boundaries." When her silver eyes met his, he was filled with emotion. This is thought to be the highest form of connection possible. As they moved closer, the bioluminescence intensified. Their synchronized heartbeats created pulses of light that filled the room. Aiden was mesmerized by how their patterns changed and flowed between them, showing how their connection was growing. He joked that between kisses on Earth, this would be seen as moving pretty quickly. Valara laughed against his lips. Humans and their arbitrary timelines. His people believe that when you find something real, you embrace it fully. Their passion grew naturally, and it was boosted by the effects of both alien substances. As the talk drifted, Valara laughed against his lips. He couldn't believe that having Callie around was in part because of his own act. As their connection grew stronger, each touch and kiss seemed to resonate on a cellular level, as if their bodies were speaking a language of its own. Later, as they lay together in the afterglow, the patterns of light slowly fading from their skin, Valar traced the outline of Aiden's beard. "The ritual was successful," she said softly. "How can you tell?" she asked as she guided his hand to her stomach, where a faint but clear pattern of light still pulsed. "This light won't fade. It's the sign of a new life beginning," Aiden said. "Dawn, what do you mean?" "I talked about genetic compatibility and how the first union celebration isn't just about honoring the couple's relationship. It's also about making the perfect conditions for pregnancy." He finished with a mix of emotions. "You're pregnant with triplets if the pattern is any indication?" She carefully washed his face and asked, "Is that okay?" Aiden was quiet for a moment as he thought about this news. I said, affecting an emotion that reminded me of our alcoholic father. "I promise." Then, to her surprise, he started to laugh. "What's so funny?" Valara asked, propped herself up on an elbow and thinking about how this all began. "You're getting attacked by bushbugs, of all things," he told her. I suppose I should send them a page nepuleta duter. Duter av kolav Dillenson. Dear bushbugs, thanks for the itching. It led to the love of my life and 3 babies." Talking about babies, Aiden asked her in a serious tone, "Are they going to be okay with the gel and everything?" She told him that the substances we used were completely safe. In fact, they helped create the perfect conditions for conception. "My people have been using similar methods for generations, and the fact that I'm human makes it even more special," she told him. "Human-alien hybrid children are rare, but highly valued in my culture. They tend to inherit the best traits of both species." Aiden pulled her closer, amazed at how quickly his life had changed. "So what happens now?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow, feeling their connection grow stronger again. "What does this part of the celebration involve?" "Why don't I show you?" she purred, the bioluminescence starting to pulse brighter around them once more. It had been 2 weeks since the first union celebration, and Aiden was still getting used to how quickly an alien pregnancy could happen. Thierra's belly already had a noticeable curve, and the bioluminescent patterns were getting stronger with each passing day. "You're staring again, Valara," she teased, stretching Lily on their bed. The morning light hit her blue skin, making the pregnancy glow even more noticeable. "Can you blame me?" Aiden asked. "What's that?" she asked, her lovely eyes locking on his for a moment. I sat next to her and put my hand on her growing belly. On Earth, humans have slow reproductive cycles, so this would take months to show. She laughed and covered his hand with hers. The touch caused small bursts of light between them. Their connection was still strong from the ritual. Aiden shook his head in amazement. That's, efficient, all right. Scared? She propped herself up, silver eyes twinkling with mischief. Terrified, he admitted with a smile, but in a good way. Good. She pulled him down for a kiss. Because I have news that might scare you more than... She traced patterns on his chest, leaving trails of light behind. Aiden raised an eyebrow, which meant she purred that she was going to be very demanding for the next few weeks. During pregnancy, my species becomes especially amorous, which has something to do with making sure proper genetic bonding. Is that scientifically necessary, or are you just making excuses to seduce me again? It couldn't be both, she laughed, sounding like crystal wind chimes. Besides, you're not complaining, what? He softly kissed her, and was amazed at how the bioluminescence intensified wherever they touched. He had to cancel his survival classes, but her hands wandered lower, causing him to catch his breath. Your pregnant mate needs you, mate. Would you prefer baby daddy? She asked him with a smile. I've been studying Earth terminology. Aiden moaned. Please don't ever say that again. Make me stop, she said. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets that sparkled with residual bioluminescence, Valara traced the outline of Aiden's beard. The boys are active today, she said, guiding his hand to where 3 distinct light pulse patterns against her skin. Boys. I can already tell that the light patterns are different for men and women. Look at how they form triangular shapes. Those are classic male energy signatures. Aiden studied the intricate designs with fascination. Will they have your bioluminescence and your strength? She asked. Hybrid children often manifest the best traits of both species, though I hope they get your beard too. My people find human facial hair incredibly attractive. That's why you chose me. My rugged look. She kissed his jaw. Actually, I chose you because of your reputation as the best survival instructor on Novacara. The beautiful beard was just a bonus. She laughed and said, well, not the Bushbugs specifically, but she added, I did a lot of research on human-alien compatibility before booking my vacation. My people are very thorough, so thorough that they pack conception-enhancing ritual supplies because a girl likes to be ready. She stretched happily. I didn't expect everything to work out so perfectly. The Bushbug gel's interaction with our natural chemistry was an unexpected but delightful catalyst. Aiden shook his head in amazement. You're something else. You know, something wonderful, she said, but he could see a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. Something extraordinary, he told her, pulling her close. Talking about the extraordinary, Valara said in that sultry voice that always got him attention. Did I mention that second-week pregnancy hormones are even stronger than first-week ones? He groaned, even though his body was already responding to her touch. You're insatiable, she purred. It's a biological imperative, you know. The more contact we have during pregnancy, the stronger the genetic bond with the babies is. That another convenient scientific fact from your people? Are you questioning my cultural traditions? She looked slightly offended, but her eyes danced with joy. No one would be prepared for an instantly confronting elation of the stomach simply to recognize what's happening. You could help me do some hands-on research, or I could give you a long lecture on xenobiology and reproductive practices. When you put it that way. He pulled her into a passionate kiss, and their bioluminescence created a private light show around them. As Valara said between kisses, human stamina is really quite remarkable. My people have studied it a lot. but experiencing it firsthand is something else entirely. More scientific observations, quality control testing, she corrected with a wicked smile. Very important for genetic compatibility. Aiden laughed, his voice full of joy and wonder at how completely. What did you just say?" Patterson asked, leaning over to look his brother in the eyes. In just 2 weeks, this amazing woman had changed his life. He went from being a lone survivor instructor to expecting a father of triplets with a beautiful alien partner who lit up when he touched her. "I love you," he said suddenly, surprising them both with a declaration. "I love you too," Vala whispered. The bioluminescent patterns on her stomach pulsed in time with her emotions. While Valera was pregnant, the last week of her pregnancy turned their apartment into a mix of human and alien traditions. Bioluminescent decorations from her home world were hung next to Earth-style congratulations banners, and medical equipment from both cultures was ready for the birth. Valar's beautiful blue-skinned mother Arya set up ceremonial birthing crystals around their bed. The crystals pulsed in time with Vala's pregnancy glow, creating an ethereal light show. "Just wait until your parents arrive," Valar teased, her heavily pregnant body radiating intense bioluminescence. "I can't wait to see how they react to alien grandchildren. They're already on their way from Earth," Aiden said, sitting next to Vala. "Your mother is thrilled, but she has about 1,000 questions about how to care for alien babies." Valera laughed, then gasped, as the triplets responded with synchronized pulses of light. "They're getting stronger." As Aiden put his hand on her belly, he was amazed at how the bioluminescent patterns changed when he touched her. 3 different sets of lights danced beneath her skin, each with its own rhythm that somehow worked with the effects of the Bushbug gel. Arya stopped what she was doing to say, "Interesting. It seems to have created a permanent bond between your physiologies. Is that normal?" Aiden asked, watching the light show get brighter where his hand met Valar's skin. "Nothing about this pregnancy is normal," Arya replied with a smile. "The combination of the gel and the pregnancy remedies Kamurai made improve your immune system as well as improve your body's ability to respond to the cold." During their conversation, there was a knock on the door. When Aiden opened it, his parents were there, fresh from their interstellar journey, looking both excited and a little overwhelmed. His father greeted him and pulled him into a bear hug. "Quite the adventure you've had," was one way to put it. Aiden laughed and led them inside. His mother's eyes widened when she saw Aurar's glowing form. "Oh my, it's beautiful, thank you, Valar," she said from the bed. "I feel more like a bioluminescent whale at this point." "A gorgeous whale," Aiden corrected, earning himself an eye roll and a loving smile. The next few hours were full of cultural exchanges as both families got to know each other. Arya and Aiden's mother both found excitement in their grandmother, while Aiden's father listened carefully as explanations of alien birthing customs were given. As evening approached, Bala's glow suddenly became brighter. "It's time," she announced, causing both families to spring into action. What followed was a blur of activity as ancient alien birthing songs mixed with human medical monitoring. The bioluminescence reached unprecedented levels, filling the room with pulsing light that seemed to beat in time with Valar's contractions. Arya exclaimed as she watched the light patterns. "The Bushbug gel's effects are actually helping." Barney had seen Wallace squeak. Valara was a great matchmaker, and between breaths, she squeezing Aiden's hand and kissing his forehead. He agreed that the hiking trip had been the best he had ever been on. The birth itself was surprisingly quick by human standards, but the light show was anything but subtle. Each baby arrived in a flash of bioluminescence, their tiny bodies glowing with a perfect mix of human and alien traits. Ari proudly told the medical team that there were 3 perfect boys, and they were all healthy and showing strong signs of being from both species. Aiden stared in awe at his sons, who had Valar blue skin, with varying human-like tones, and their hair was light brown, with subtle bioluminescent streaks that pulsed with their. They were all born with tiny birthmarks that looked exactly like the bushbug bites that brought their parents together. Their mother whispered, "What are their names?" And Valara smiled tiredly. "In our traditions, we name children after the circumstances of their conception, or the forces that brought their parents together." "We're not naming them after parasites," Aiden said quickly, making everyone laugh. "No," Valara agreed. "We thought we'd honor the journey that brought us together." She pointed to each boy and said, "Atlas for the mountains where we met, River for the crystal lakes we never quite made it to, and Hunter for his father's job that started it all." Perfect names for both of them. The grandmothers all agreed and smiled at each other as they held their babies. Aiden sat next to Valara and held her hand. The bioluminescence had settled into a soft glow that pulsed happily like a visual lullaby. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what? For choosing me? For planning this crazy adventure? For giving me a family I never knew I needed?" Valara smiled, her silver eyes shining with love. "Thank the bushbugs," she teased. "They're the real heroes of this story." "Don't you dare," he said with a straight face. "Don't you dare." She laughed and pulled him down for a kiss, reflected in the soft glows of their 3 sleeping sons. From an awkward meeting with alien parasites to a love that literally lit up their world, their story had become something amazing, a testament to the surprising ways that love could bring people of different species together and make something new and wonderful.